I mean, the first thing I need to ask is about how things ended because Tribal Council was basically your home away from home by the time you go there for the sixth time. And, you had a sense, you were telling us in confessionals, right, that you knew that you were all on the outside. You were putting in the work as you always do. But as you were going in there and as you were going up to vote before you see that you don't have one, what did you think your chances were of surviving for the sixth time?
I knew my chances were low. I even say it like I know I'm on the bottom. I know I'm an easy vote. I think I had a little more faith in my castmates to do something that wasn't so predictable. And at any point, you could have gotten rid of me. I had no allies. I had no advantages. Like I was very much predictable, and I was a little disappointed in the predictability of it all. But I also understood I was the wild card. I was the chaos maker. I was the one who they couldn't predict what she was going to do. And it's true. You weren't going to be able to predict what I was going to do. I was going to be slashing throats left and right. And good on them for getting rid of the one person who made them all so interesting.
Yeah, so to that point, when it comes to this perception, because we hear it from a lot of people as well, say is a chaos maker, she's a wild card, as you mentioned. I mean, talk to me about your reaction to that perception, because I certainly know going in, you didn't necessarily intend to sow as much chaos. So, how did you hear about that, and how much did that affect you thinking, like, can I move forward in this game if everyone apparently thinks I'm someone that can sow so much discord?
Honestly, I didn't think I was that chaotic. What's funny is this was the toned down version of me. I literally in my head was always like, okay, tone it down, tone it down. Say, this is the polite way to say it. So that version of me was the toned down version. And so to hear that when I was eating fruit, I was a chaos maker was insane to me. All I'm doing is eating kiwi that we already divided up. That was mine that we won from our previous challenge. So I don't know why me eating first was an issue. I was a little taken back by how much they thought I was chaotic because I really did think I was reserved. I truly did. I was like, no, I'm chilling. Like, I'm really laying low. Like, I said it a few times.
Well, you mentioned this in your final words. If they had let you survive, it would be to their detriment. I mean, I imagine at this point, to what you mentioned earlier, you were probably just looking for ways to survive every vote. But did you have any plans that, had you survived and Mitch had gone, people you would have wanted to move forward with, either ones that, the Vulas or anyone that you had recently met?
Yes, Killa Camilla. Like I even had a conversation. I noticed her immediately when we made the merge. I said, it's something about Camilla that just, I was like, she's a thinker. I was just observing her. I was very much, when I was laying low, when we first got there, I was like, I'm observant. I'm going to observe what everyone is doing, who's talking to who, drinking my coconut, doing my own thing, intentionally not talking to people to not look like I'm causing chaos. Because the moment I walk away with someone, they're like, she threw your name out. And I'm like, that's not true. Like, just ask me if I threw your name out. I'll tell you I didn't throw your name out. Camilla was a biggie. Kyle, I had a separate conversation. Well, both of them at the same time. I knew they were a dude. I knew it. I was like, you guys walk away too much with each other and you act like me and Cedric in a different, much more toned down version of it. And I peeped it immediately. Those were the first two that you never got to see that I pulled when we were all getting wood for the fire. Well, they were getting wood. I was not picking up no wood, but I had a conversation with them. Those are the two I would have loved to work with. Shaheen was also a biggie for me. So I actually was very happy that I got to see that he understood me. Like, I'm not into the niceties. I'm very much, if I vibe with you, I'm locked in. And so I didn't want to do that with everyone on this island and then turn around and vote you off after I just heard about your mom who you love so dearly and don't have her. Like, how can you do that? That was hard for me to realize. It's like you guys are smiling in each other's faces and then like cutting each other's throats. Like, that's weird to me. At least when I cut your throat, you're like, oh, well, you never liked me. So, exactly.
Yeah, well, let's rewind all the way back to the beginning of this, roller coaster of a game that you had because you declare on the beach in that confessional, one of many, this is my season, and you prove it when you form this core four. It seems like within hours of getting to the island, you start looking for that beware advantage, so visibly. Talk to me about whether this was something you were adamantly wanting to do in the beginning. And, were you aware that this was something that, as recent as the next vote, could have people saying, Osei is way too big of a threat. Do we want to keep her around?
Honestly, I really did think I was laying low. I waited a pretty amount of time before, and I reached out to the girls first. Like I wanted to work with the women. I think people forget that I got shot down. I was the one who was like, I'd love to work with you guys. And I wasn't privy to a conversation that Steph had with Mary, telling Mary that I didn't trust Mary, which never happened. I never said that. I wanted to work with you guys. It wasn't until you guys shot me down that I was like, okay, I gotta pivot because I pivot in my everyday life. So the pivot was then the boys, which I would later come to regret because you can't trust men, as I've said. But um, I hope that answered your question. I feel like I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I guess on top of that, because you were so visibly doing things like hunting for the idol, or even things like you mentioned, Stephanie and Mary, being very verbal and some heated exchanges at tribal council. I mean, were you aware of how out in front you were in a game that, yes, is 26 days, but that's still a long time and a lot of votes to manage?
Yes, I just didn't think that being me was too much because that is who I am in real life. Like what you see is what you get. And to the people that I normally surround myself with, I'm like welcomed with open arms. They get me. I'm never told I'm too much. I'm never told to do this, don't do that. So maybe I didn't understand that it was too much for them. But again, too much for them. I'm not going to change because you can't handle it. And I also think that you should appreciate or value a player like me who's just going to tell you, you're always going to know where I'm at, like mentally and how I feel about things. And I do take into consideration other people's feelings. There were so many times where Cedric told me, let's not do that. And I was like, okay, I'm working with you, so I'll take your input. So I guess I didn't realize that looking for the idol and doing all of those things was putting an even bigger target on my back because I thought that me being honest was good enough.
Well, you mentioned Cedric. We could do it a full 15 minutes on this incredibly complicated relationship. Talk to me about this because, this is the only vote where the two of you are not at tribal council together. So you spent so much time from the beginning through the end, yet obviously a lot of complicated emotions involved. You're still holding down this idea that he voted for you twice and then turned on Justin. So talk to me about how you emotionally navigated this relationship during your time in the game.
Okay, so let me start with going to tribal and not having him there. The ironic thing about that is the whole time I wanted to get away from Cedric, and it ended up being my demise in the game. That like I didn't realize when we were playing that I'm better together than apart from him. So that is my biggest regret is the one thing I wished for, I finally got, and then I end up going home. Now, our complicated relationship made for great TV, and I'm very grateful for the way we interacted with one another and how patient he was with me because he was driving me up a wall. But that's just who he is. He's very even keeled, he's very patient, and he's very kind. Very grateful. Would not have had the same game if Cedric was not there because I definitely would have gone home first if somebody who wasn't rational and saw that there's value in a player who's being honest with you wasn't present.
So let's talk about Mary, the other Vula, to make the merge here, because again, another really complicated dynamic. And you talk about, why don't people necessarily understand and honor the fact that, I am so upfront. And she does. I mean, the two of you were so open with each other about how much you have this respect for each other, yet can't work together. You do make amends before the swap. So talk to me about how that came to be and were things different when the two of you merged? Because we get these two confessionals last week, right? Where you're like, great, can't wait to see Mary. We're picking up from where we left off. And Mary's like, I got a knot in my stomach seeing Say. And that's not just from all the fruit I've been eating.
Okay, so before the merge, what you don't see is we had an in-depth conversation where she cried and I got to see her for her. And I was like, this is taking a toll on her. And I think we're stronger together. That's where you end up with the confessional of like, I think we're stronger together. I'm very much what I say is what I mean, and what I say I'm going to do is what I'm going to do. So when we squashed it, I was like, okay, cool, we've squashed it. And she verbalized that to me. So moving forward, I was like, perfect. This is someone I can work with. Had she been honest with me and said, oh, I appreciate your apology, but I genuinely can't get past all of the things that we did, I would have went to that beach. She came over to me and hugged me. Like, let's not forget, I didn't run over to her. You came over to me. So to me, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, we had this conversation. She's now coming over and approaching me. She's now feeding me the information that it's a charity vote. We're working together and we're cool. So it was a little I was a little taken, not taken back because I don't care that much, but I was a little surprised that that was her reaction because you didn't have that same energy in person. I'm very much energy in person, same energy you're going to get in a confessional is what you're going to get when I'm in your face.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, you talked about how, again, this way that you approach things is a bit different than some of the things that these other people were doing. I mean, it was even talked about at this tribal council a little bit, right? With Chrissy speaking to some of the perspectives that some of these others were having. Looking back on your game, do you think that's a tactic that can work in a game like Survivor? Being so upfront when so many people perceived it, as we mentioned before, as more so like being chaotic, being confrontational, about being so upfront about things at the top.
I do think there's a world where it can work. You just have to have people with as thick a skin as I have. And you're not going to get that there. I'm a very specific type of person, and I attribute it to being raised in Philadelphia. There's a lot of my friends who are very much like me and get me. And that wasn't what I got on the island. And I played the game. I went into the game knowing that I was going to be surrounded by a bunch of people who are not like me. Do I wish I had scaled it back and like been more reserved and maybe not been so much say? No, I have no regrets for being myself. And I've gotten so many DMs, if you mind me,
No, please.
say, I'm so glad you showed up unapologetically yourself. And especially as a Black woman, I've constantly been told in corporate America that you need to smile more, you're coming off, or you need to tone your voice out. I didn't want to do that. And I wasn't going to do that. I was on an island 100% me, and what you see is what you get. And I'm so grateful. Like I love every moment of the game that I played. I have no regrets except for not
Yeah.
making, but beyond that.
Yeah, what you say is what you get. How do you think you would have been as a jury member? I mean, I think everybody tries to go in, saying I'm going to be the most impartial, going to vote on the resume, etc. But you had relationships with these people. How do you think if Joe had held on longer than David and you end up sitting on this jury, what do you think your mood and temperament would have been for, the next couple weeks of the game?
Impartial is insane. I would have 100% been partial. I would have been like, oh my God, I love you. You're getting my vote. Or none of y'all deserve my vote, and Jeff is getting the money. I 100% would have given them a run for their money. I understand why they didn't want me on the jury. Is it a loss? Yes. I think I would have been way more entertaining on the jury. And I think that the fans, I would have been asking the questions that the fans would have wanted to see. I would have been pushing back on the narrative of like, this is why I deserve the money, or like, this is the game that I played. This is the move that I took credit for. I'd have been like, yeah, no, not really. That's not how that happened. I would have loved every moment of it, and they know that.
Well, the last thing I want to ask is what we got to watch over the past several weeks. I mean, we've talked about this, but you set a record for most confessionals within the first seven episodes of a season in Survivor history. You tied a record that's been going on for over 20 years of going to six straight tribal councils and always getting a vote. And look, you mentioned the DMs. I cannot remember a more polarizing character in recent history when it comes to Survivor. There were so many people that loved you. There were so many people that were like, say, what are we doing? So, how do you look back on your time there? Because obviously, the win is one of the end all be alls of being out there. But since you had such a big presence over the course of your time in the game, especially on screen, how do you look back on everything that happened in Fiji?
I love this question. I loved every moment of it. The beauty about Say is that she causes conversation. I am very polarizing, but that is great for TV. You're having conversations about me, whether you love me or you hate me, you're still talking about it. Like I enjoyed every moment being out there. And I also had so much resolve with the end of my game because I knew I was being me. Like if you didn't like me, you didn't like me because of me. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And if you love me because of me. Like it was everything that I could have imagined and more. Like, you have no idea how grateful I am. So glad that I showed up as myself. I have no regrets. I'm so glad I said everything I wanted to say. I went out of the game feeling like, oh, my job here is done.
Well, I am so happy that you got back to work and talking with me today. I mean, count me as among the many people that are sending the love because, again, I want authenticity out of my reality TV characters, and you showed that in such an entertaining fashion and are a large contributor as to how wild this season has been so far. So, you know how much I always appreciate your candor and your authenticity from our conversations out there to our conversation today. And so thank you, Say, for everything through today's conversation.
Thank you so much. That means so, so much to me. Like, I love being seen for who I am. And you have no idea, the kind words go a big way, like, go very far. I know that's even the word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean. Like, it goes very far with me. Thank you.
Well, thank the feeling is very much mutual. So I wish you nothing but the best. I'm hoping we're gonna have some many conversations in the future, whatever that might involve. But thank you, as always, Say all the best. Thanks so much again.
Sweet.
Bye.